Today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends Venom wave. We're finally having a look at the Build-A-Figure of Space Venom. I guess really by comparison, this was a shorter series of reviews as we only really had 6 figures to have a look at to build a completed Venom. The end result though, the Venom looks fantastic. Primarily the colors on Venom are normally black and white, and I think this Venom also carries over to that, but you're getting a much different presentation here of Venom. Gone are the large Venom style of eyes and of course the teeth. Agent Venom, of course, a departure from that, but then Space Venom kind of goes back to it, but again, omitting the teeth portion of it, you have something that comes across more like an actual space suit. Yeah, that's one of the things that I haven't, there we go. One of the things that had popped off a couple of times is the head area. Again, a decent looking Venom. It's a good sized Venom, and probably the best size comparison I can do for it, even though it's not really, I guess, the same. Is it the same? It's not really the same universe, but there is the Ultimate Peter Parker Spider-Man, which I think is a great comparison because then it makes Venom so much bigger in comparison. He's a very broad figure as well, but broad and proportionate are very key. Not only is he a broad figure, but proportionately he fits properly. I ended up selling it was the Marvel Legends, it was the Hasbro Marvel Legends Venom, which used the same body as the Sabretooth and also used the same body as the Toxin and the Anti-Venom. And that particular body, I have gone on record countless times saying it's one of the worst Marvel Legends molds that they use because the top proportions of the torso don't gel with the very short, stumpy legs that they end up putting on the figures. And as good as that Venom might have been, the stumpy legs is what killed it for me for this figure. That if they could only have done that Venom with that head sculpt on this sized body, I think you would have had a perfect Venom proportion. But let's not dwell. I mean, that's one of the things they always say, don't dwell in your past, move on. Think to the future. Well, the future here, and I guess literally speaking, the future here is Space Venom. Primarily, again, mostly black, still has the nods to the Venom, being the white areas of his eyes, which also has, which hopefully you can see there, he's got the yellows of his irises, or at least what would be his irises. And he's got a couple of patches there on his shoulders. Now, it's not a flawless figure by any stretch of the imagination. Black plastic is not something that always works with Marvel Legends. You have varying degrees of plastic. And let me explain what I mean. When you get the head area, the head and the torso match perfectly. Don't really have any issues with that. The shoulders and bicep areas also work well. But then for some reason, the hands, and I guess being that these are painted hands, painted black hands as opposed to black plastic, the hands and even like the areas of the thighs, the plastic doesn't seem the same style of plastic as the torso areas. So I find a lot of times, and it could just be the density that these are more hollow up the top, more denser down below, but lower leg areas always tend to be a darker plastic black than the top areas here. Let's talk about some of the different varying degrees of color. The interior of his hands are good stark white. Now, you probably might also see too that the starkness of white also comes at the price that the hands, the paint inside the hands come across very goopy, like there's an excess amount of paint that they've used, which I guess is not terrible. But then when you have your next door neighbor as these little tiny patches that are on the interiors of his arms, the whites don't match. The interior palm doesn't match the white that's on the side. The white bears more closer resemblance to the logo in the middle, but then these little white patches on the side seem like a lesser degreed paint job. The same thing also can be applied for the legs. When you spin around the back of the legs, he has the same style of paint that's been applied to the backs of his calves, but it's a completely different paint than the heels that are painted in what you would think would be the same white, but it ends up not being the same white. It doesn't bother me as much here, but it really bothers me here that this paint, especially here, the white hasn't been completely finished, and in some cases looks like it's been scraped and almost chipping off. Really, like, other than that, and the spiraling of plastic, which likely can be chalked up just the way it came out of the mold, other than that, the figure isn't bad. I mean, right, I don't have issues other than just the little areas here and the areas here. I wish that those gelled a little bit better. Posability on Venom, let's bring the camera back a little bit. Posability on Venom, ball joint head, hinged also in the neck area. A good substantial socket for the arm, so like you feel like it just has a good stability to it. Doesn't feel like the arms rock. Sometimes the legs feel like they could be loose on some larger figures. Don't have that issue here with Venom. But the arms do rotate all the way around. You have a rotation on the bicep area. A bend at the elbow, which is so stiff on this figure, even after I've played with it for as much as I have, the arm is still stiff. There's a rotation on the wrist, a hinge, and a very insignificant hinge, I might also add. Hinge back and forth on the wrists. He has an upper torso crunch, swiveled waist, ball joint legs, and you probably will see so far, other than the little faux pas of having the head pop off at the beginning of this review, I haven't had anything else fall off. Nothing like Dormammu. But the arms, or the legs I should say, rotate back and forth, rotate out, a swivel cut on the top area of the thigh, double hinge knee, a hinge on the foot, and also, yes, you would ask for it, you would get it, he also has the ankle pivot as well. A good Venom. I mean, we've gotten countless Venoms over the course of really just the Hasbro releases of Marvel Legends. We got lots of Venoms, whether it be Eddie Brock, for example, as the Venom, the person inhabiting the symbiote, or whether it was other individuals as well. We've gotten a lot of Venoms, and I'm trying to think of, let's carry the one, I think we've gotten about 4 or 5 different Venoms over the course of, I guess this one being maybe the 5th. It's different, yes. It still inhabits or exhibits the same sort of idea of Venom with the whites and the blacks. And it still reads very much as Venom, even though it's not, for me, and I am a traditionalist when it comes to classic designs, even though it's not a classic design of Venom, it actually is one of my favorites of the Marvel Legends Venoms that we've gotten in the lines. So, good job, Space Venom, good job. We'll put him right here. Let's just talk about some of the figures that we had in this line. And actually, unlike the Doctor Strange line that we just looked at, where I feel like it started high and then it kind of went down a little bit and kind of went like this for a little bit and then it kind of went up briefly and then I find this wave, for the most part, was actually a great wave of figures. And I've been kind of thinking in the back of my mind, okay, what would I say is the best figure from this wave? And to be honest, I actually struggled with it. It was a toss-up, actually, between the Peter Parker Ultimate Spider-Man and Silk, which I've got her right over here. Just bring her in. Silk probably was, these two figures are probably my favorite from this line. I mean, very, very drastically different from one another. You have Peter Parker Spider-Man, you have Silk, very different figures, but those are probably my favorites from this line. Third favorite, I might even say Spider-Girl as my 3 favorites. Miles Morales, I think, was a close 4th. Hobgoblin, you would almost imagine would be right up the list, but, you know, I think the face sculpt, again, maybe just lack thereof paint, and the fact that the glider was slightly disappointing. You know what? Maybe I would put Hobgoblin as the 4th favorite figure from this line. There we go. And rounding closely to that, we would have Miles Morales. You say to yourself, hey Spot, well, you've got most of the figures on there. Where's Electro? Well, Electro I probably would rank then the bottom. You know, not a bad head sculpt, but he had a lot of shortcomings on everything else that really didn't make him make the grade, if you will. He showed up for school, he took the exam, but ultimately I think he's going to be repeating next year. I think that could be not likely the best Electro, and I think a lot of people, myself included, I think will likely just say, well, it's not a bad Electro because we don't really have a lot of Electros to start off with. That's a poor reason to accept the figure as being good, simply because there's not really a lot of him out there. But there you go, guys. There, in a nutshell, all the figures that we had to look at in this wave. This was of course, the Build-A-Figure Venom that we looked at in this video, and then we talked about all the other figures that made up this wave. Let me know down below what you think of Venom. Maybe also, you know what, we'll have some fun too. Let me know down below how you would rank these figures. So we got, let's not count Venom. So we got 6 figures, right? Hobgoblin, Hulk, Ultimate Spider-Man, Spider-Girl, Miles Morales, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Electro. Of these 6 figures, how would you rank them? Put, like, you know, top figure, first figure, second figure, you know, number 1 at the top, the last one at the bottom. We'll kind of see who would you feel would be the best figures from this line. And certainly as well, stay tuned. Spot's got lots more videos, I should say. We have to put the more in there as well. Lots more videos heading your way as well. As always, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.